The Great Flood Story of Weqe, Origin of the Weqe Nation, as told by Chief Billy Esu. The first man came down at Tekia, Topaz Harbor, in the mainland. His name was Weqe. Lakiatasin is the name of the great mountain there. After a long time, Weqe was told by someone that a great flood was to come. Weqe told his people to make a long cedar rope that went from the top of the mountain down to the salt water at the ocean. Many people laughed at Weqe and made fun of him, saying he believed everything that he heard. Weqe told his people to tie 4 canoes together, and soon many came. With the long rope, the people made an anchor and tied its end to a mountain to secure their canoes during the great flood. The flood lasted for a very long time, and it is said that the tides were really strong and the weather was very bad. Because of the rough weather, the canoes began banging together, and Weqe feared that the canoes would split and they would all drown. Therefore, Weqe had to cut away 2 canoes and let them drift away. The first canoe Weqe cut away is said to have drifted northward to Kitimat. The second canoe is said to have drifted south down to Washington, and the tribe today still speaks the same language as Weqe's people. Finally, the great flood went down, and Weqe looked around and realized that he was in a different place. He had drifted up into Zawadi, Night Inlet. There was a woman living there named Listak. She had wings on her back. Weqe began to put stakes in the river to build a salmon trap, and when the woman saw him, she asked him what he was doing. She told him that this was her river. Weqe argued and said that it was his river and he had been there first. To test Weqe, the woman asked him, if this is truly a river, then what type of fish return here? Weqe replied, sockeye salmon, coho, pink salmon, spring salmon, chum salmon, and steelhead salmon. The woman told Weqe that if he really owned the river, that he would have known about the valuable ulican that returns there in the springtime. The woman and Weqe continued to argue over the ownership of the river for a long time. The woman told Weqe that the valuable little fish was called zahwin, the candlefish or uligan. The woman eventually allowed Weqe to build a house along the side of the river so that he could make glitna, or uligan grease, every spring. Weqe put the grease into containers made from dried kelp. He traded his grease for slaves. After a while, people everywhere began to increase in numbers. They were also survivors of the Great Flood. So Weqe went to invite the different tribes and called them for a feast. Many times Weqe hosted feasts and gave away his grease and slaves to his guests, and he became a great chief. Weqe also lived at Weqe, at the mouth of the Nimkish River, where there were logs piled up for foundations for dwellings there. Weqe's wife was a woman from Guilford Island named Kihknak. He married her and got a copper named Tlakwola. There are many tribes and clans that come from Weqe and his family. They are known as the Weqe. There are mainly 4 tribes sharing common ancestry, beginning with Weqe and his family, survivors of the Great Flood. Weqe, the descendants of Weqe, who now live at Zakwaluten, Cape Mudge. Weqe are the descendants of Weqe's sister, who now live at Campbell River, Klamatau. Weqe Matsano, another tribe of the Weqe. Another tribe of the Weqe, Hossam, Salmon River, an uninhabited village. He'am, Letman Squash, Gaelic Wa.